Here we go again. The Big Ride, issues 56 through 59. This one is back to being semi-episodic as Billy and Huey investigate the murder of a trans escort. Meanwhile, the main plot and character development elements are simmering in the background. To deal with the latter first, Huey is back on the job after his conversation with Mallory, but he's still not sure what he's going to do. He went into this job to get justice for Robin, but he's never really aimed a direct hit towards A-Train nor demanded a shot at him. He's mostly been focused on the individual jobs and the people involved in them. Him and Annie talk about it, and he admits that he feels stuck, especially with Butcher being his boss. After learning all he has learnt about Butcher and the rest of the boys, he questions whether or not they are even a net good on the world. He has a conversation with MM, who tells him the truth that has been creeping up on him since he began this job. They are not the good guys. MM, despite being a man of some conscience, doesn't care about the jobs and the people the way Huey does. He just wants Vought to hurt for what they did to his family. And as far as Frenchie and the female goes, who the fuck knows? Like Huey found out with Mallory, this isn't a noble crusade. This is choosing to fight using the resources of one malicious giant because you happen to have a personal beef with another. The episodic story of the trans girl's murder is quite tightly tied to the wider story and moves a lot of chess pieces into place. Jack from Jupiter is the prime suspect, but the boys don't actually believe it's him, as the incident just screams staged to them. Nevertheless, videos of him engaging in sex with the girls at the brothel are broadcast, and Homelander says they'll have to throw him out because whether or not he committed the murder, he is off message. The Seven seem to be convinced that recent events, this included, are the boys fucking with them, and Jack manages to convince Homelander that this is just the next step in their plot to bring down the Seven, and Homelander can't let it stand, especially if he wants his big plans to come to fruition. The boys anticipate this and get ready for a confrontation, but Homelander knows Butcher isn't lying and they part. Both sides knowing that someone is trying to make them fight, which we find out later is Stillwell's protege, who has been running with the idea that the Seven should be phased out, and Jack from Jupiter's exit was a part of that. Obviously, Jack is not happy about Homelander's decision and goes off in a strop, swearing retribution. Huey confronts Butcher on his mind games and the boys on how they treat people who become collateral in this war. As we've established, Huey is the only one who really cares. Billy sideswipes him yet again and they head back to the office only to find the body of Terror, which Billy takes about as badly as you'd expect him to. And while the length of this scene and the repetition of "why'd you kill my dog, why'd you kill my dog" is unsettling enough, the thing that makes my blood run cold are the words, "It ain't me. I'm somewhere else watching it happen." Which again, the argument that show Billy is better because you like him is one I just can't possibly understand. What is this ridiculous need to like this psychopathic maniac because he is supposed to be a psychopathic maniac? And making that character more likable is a rating plus? I'm sorry, I don't get it. I don't get it. I will never get it. Over the Hill with the Swords of 1,000 Men, issues 60 through 65. We find out from the Deep that Jack from Jupiter's death is not going to be met with any retaliation because it's another case of keeping the peace, 1 for 1 as it was called. And the Deep sees this as the life of a member of the Seven being equated to a dog, and as such he is beginning to realize just how little importance they actually have. Something again the show completely torpedoed. The show says that they are just pawns in this big capitalist hellscape scheme, but they're not. They are players. They might be good players, bad players, competent players, incompetent players, but no, they have meaning in this narrative and they matter. Again, completely torpedoes the idea that if superheroes existed, they would just be media and corporate pawns. Again, the life member of the Seven, the most powerful superhero group, is considered by Vought to be equivalent to the death of a dog. I don't know how it can be made any clearer than that. This is something that has been made clear throughout most of Stillwell's scenes and is brought home in the best scene in the comic, which I will be skipping over for now because I have a lot more to say about it.
You are not a god. You are simply bad product.
But to sum up, again, you cannot call these characters just bad product when you have actively framed them as players in the game, not pawns, players. You can't have it both ways. Again, my big argument that making these characters likable and active in the way that you did completely ruined the point you were trying to make. Again, the show is the most bargain bin basic anti-capitalism, evil capitalism, capitalism bad shit that I have ever seen. But Garth Ennis, who I don't particularly think subscribes to that ideology, does a better anti-capitalism message with... Again, explain it to me. Meanwhile, Huey is still struggling to get over himself with Annie, and she has just about reached the end of her rope. Another instance of Huey being told to shit or get off the pot. That has basically been his main character flaw throughout this entire comic. The whole idea of whether he's going to commit to this life, he's going to succumb to the harshness of this world, or he's gonna walk away and maintain his good nature. I believe this somewhat prompts him into doing what he does next in talking to Butcher about his job. He says that he can't have anything to do with violence. He says that, like Billy well knows, he's not like the other boys. What he does sticks with him. He doesn't say this in any form of judgment. It's just that what Billy has been trying to do, toughen him up so to speak, has only made him more adverse to violence than he was at the beginning. Proven by the next shit show that literally lands on their doorstep in the form of a random throwaway soup team sent by Homelander to take care of them, which proves no problem for the boys, minus Huey. They are suspicious about this, as it doesn't make sense for Vought to attack them at this point, especially not with a 2-bit team like that, not knowing that it was Homelander who sent them independently of Vought. Huey confesses that Black Noir sexually assaulted him at Herogasm, a part of the story I won't really be going over as I don't think it's particularly plot relevant. I wouldn't recommend skipping over it in a reading of the comic, but I don't really have that much to say about it. And he is met with a less than sympathetic response. Again, hammering home just how little Huey belongs here. But Billy has one last trick up his sleeve, one last ditch effort to get Huey to cross over. He presents him A-Train on a silver platter. Butcher plays a surveillance recording of them talking about the incident where Robin died and how little they actually give a fuck, how little they actually saw what happened as the end of a human life, more a personal fuck-up. Huey yells at A-Train, asking him if he even knows what he did. He screams, he rants, but all he really wants is a reaction of humanity. But all A-Train can do is sit there and beg for his life. Butcher tells him this isn't going to be like one of those moments like you see in movies, where the wronged talks to the person who wronged them and mutual humanity is found in the middle. A-Train just doesn't want to die, and he will say anything he can to get out of there with his life, so Huey should just get it over with. Huey still isn't pushed far enough though, so Butcher keeps playing the recording with A-Train and whomever else is on it, talking about some heinous shit, including underage girls, and then they get to Starlight. This is enough to get Huey's blood boiling again, and he kicks A-Train's head off. Meanwhile, Annie finally takes the plunge and leaves the Seven, having a last talk with Maeve. We see that Annie isn't just leaving to be with Hughie, as she isn't even sure Hughie will be waiting for her. And for that matter, she isn't even entirely sure she wants Hughie to be waiting for her in the form that he is if he can't get over himself. She is doing this for herself. And she warns Maeve to get out too, but, and this is my interpretation, Maeve is like an animal in the zoo at this point, in the sense that she wouldn't survive on the outside. She is too comfortable with meaningless booze, sex, drugs, and adoration that even if none of it makes her happy, she can't imagine living any other way. But she knows it's not too late for Starlight. So, when Homelander comes to confront them, she sacrifices herself to save her. Additionally, the Frenchman and the female launch a retaliatory attack on Vought. Stillwell manages to calm things down by insisting that he did not send anyone after them, and they are both being distracted by someone with their own agenda. Sadly, though, not before Frenchie loses an arm. When they find out what Homelander's plan is, and that he wants to take over the White House, Stillwell asks the boys to stand down while he sorts this out, but of course Billy is having none of it. He tells MM to broadcast every piece of evidence they have on every soup incident they were involved in, and he leaves with the words, "You've had your turn, Hughie. I'm having mine." Next issue, we see Butcher and Hughie on their way to Washington, and Billy says to Hughie that he hates the thought of him getting hurt. So he's been trying to toughen him up because the world is a tough one to live in, and he doesn't want to see it swallow him up. Now, throughout all of Billy's interactions with Hughie, it has been incredibly difficult to tell how much of this is sincere and how much of it is just blatant manipulation. I would say most of the time both, but with a heavy lean towards manipulation. This one, on the other hand, I'm more inclined to lean towards sincere, as Billy is more than astute enough to know at this point that Hughie is who Hughie is, and even the force of nature that is Billy Butcher is never going to change that. And we have the best scene in the comic, the scene that, for me, turned this comic from a great one into a masterpiece. But again, I have much more I'm going to say on that, so I will just leave it there. Meanwhile, Hughie and Billy are outside the White House with the military's best soup-seeking hardware, which Billy dug up earlier in the comic. They discuss tactics with the Colonel, who's been instructed to answer to Butcher, before he then announces that he'll be going in after Homelander. This is where we again see the kind of person Hughie truly is. He was cowering under the desk when blood and guts were getting thrown all over the office, but that is because he knew the boys weren't in danger without him, and yet he still says he won't let Billy go in there alone without a second thought as to if dozens of soups in the sky and the most powerful one inside are too much for Billy, they are 10 times so for Hughie. Because that is the kind of man Hughie Campbell truly is.
He also has more of an opportunity to be brave.
Sadly, he's given no choice in the matter, as Billy orders the Colonel to shoot Hughie's kneecaps if he tries to go in after him. And then we get to the revelation of the comic, which gets scorn from readers, which I really don't understand why. Of course, Vought created a contingency plan for if their most expensive and profitable product failed in some way. And of course, being forced into an understudy role, forced to be silent, which is why this guy can barely speak right, would drive you insane. I'm not saying this is the greatest twist that has ever existed in comic book history, but it all feeds back into that line. Bad product. The main point. How can you say it's bad writing when it feeds back in to what the comic has been saying this whole time? How can you say it's bad when everything makes sense? I will get into that later, but I am officially out of pins. Butcher finally gets his revenge, but it's about as hollow for him as it was for Hughie. Billy knows that Rebecca would never have wanted him to do any of this, that he did not do it for her, but all for himself, that she wouldn't have wanted him to turn into the person he became. Clearly, he once had something of a heart that was big enough to love her. It had room for her, it had room for sweet old Terror, it even had room for Huey. But bit by bit, he has discarded his own humanity to the point where even he feels like he can't stop what he's going to do next.